we started this whole thing talking about last minute prep stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at? What's your last minute?
Overnight parts from
Detroit.
Detroit, probably. Yeah, I don't know wherever the Chevy ABS sensor come from.
Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah. Hopefully that makes it here tomorrow, like it says.
Cool.
Truck got a line today.
Nice.
So that's at least done.
Cool.
After that, it's just going to be like kind of some little stuff other than packing. I need to figure out a way to double strap down my fridge because I'm not going to have as much stuff in there that's like jamming it into place. Like initially I just had the one strap on the front, and because it was like jammed into place by the rest of my stuff that is strapped down, it wouldn't move. But since it's the Rubicon and I'm not bringing that much stuff, I'm going to have to figure a way to strap it and the other couple of things that I've got in the back.
It just dawned on me today that I don't really ever strap anything down in my car because we're just doing silly overland trips. And I think I'm going to have to strap some stuff down, or at least like I have
the big heavy stuff.
Yeah. I have a lot of space, and like my fridge is normal strapped down to its slider. It's great. And all of my stuff that lives inside the drawers, great. But there will be things that have to be on top. So I'm going to nix a couple of things that I bring camping that I just it doesn't matter to bring. And then I think I'm going to figure out just like a way to kind of put that stuff in one space that is covered. So that might be my Saturday project.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think that tuning thing, like we talked about earlier, should be set. So that will be good. Doesn't like to go and park consistently now, which is also, it's a shift linkage. I've got
linkage again.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been fighting that since the start. So I got to do that. Sounds like everybody else is kind of scrambling too. So
yeah,
it'll be fine.
Yeah.
It'll be fine.
Whatever. First time on the Rubicon.
What did you just say that reminded me of this? Dang, I lost that thought. Well, I was going to say the thing that we're doing today is having a guest. And so because we're having a guest, we're recording after the guest with the typical intro kind of thing, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to do the intro during the start of the guest, but it turns out our guest today, who is Toasty Fab on Instagram, his name is Adam. He is awesome.
I think he's just Toasty on Instagram.
No, it's Toasty Fab.
Is it Toasty Fab?
At Toasty Fab. Well, I'm looking at it right now.
The Montero following, the Montero crowd will just know him as Toasty from forums and things like that.
As the description on his Instagram says, it's the Toasty.
The Toasty.
Yeah, he's the guy. So if you know Toasty, this is the man that's on the podcast. And we have a nice little conversation with him, a little bit about Monteros, and just because that's what he has, but also just a good time, like a fun conversation.
Good storyteller.
He's a good storyteller. Like at first I was like, the first story I was like, oh, cool. He's got like a good story. And then like by the third story, I went, nice. This guy's got some stories. Yeah. And it felt good to share some of those and listen to some of the stories, and then kind of, just get our spin on it too. So
yeah,
it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, that was it. It was a really good little show. Nice little conversation. Colin, what do you got?
Oh,
did I ruin it?
Yeah, no, I mean, you didn't ruin anything. It's just, you put you
on the spot.
Put me on the spot, up in the air. Let's go to the Rubicon.
Oh yeah, we should do that.
Okay.
Hey, what are you doing Sunday morning? So I want to get straight into one thing because we were looking. It just like dawned on me. The one thing I have questions about immediately is the first pinned post on your Instagram, which is, I'm sorry to bring up a terrible memory, I'm assuming at this point, but it is a Montero on its passenger side very hard with two things that I want to point out. One, I told Colin it looks like the quicksand we were all warned about as kids. It just looks like you're just falling into flat ground somehow. And then the other thing is the commentary of, like the one time I didn't strap my fridge down, it blew out a quarter window and mud got into my car. Like that couldn't have been good. I have to hear the story of how this actually happened.
It was actually really dumb and like not even exciting. We were just camping and I'm trailing along behind some other guys, and I didn't have a radio, but our trail leader radioed back and said, "Hey, there's some mud in the trail. Go around it. It's way, way deeper than it looks, and it's dry on top."
Oh.
And so we get there. Everybody goes around it to the right. I hate mud. And so they went through the mud just a tiny bit. And I didn't want to go through it at all. And on the left of this puddle, there's like a little berm, completely dry. Looks like the easiest thing in the world. I drove on it, and I'm doing like a quarter of a mile an hour. I'm just creeping. And I have my son in the passenger seat. We get right alongside this hole, and he looks over and he saw where the first truck went in. There was water, and it had like broken the crust, so to say.
Okay.
And he looked in there out his passenger window because he's leaning on the side, and he said, "That's really deep, Dad. Are we going to tip over into this?" And I was like, "No, this is nothing." And so I rolled forward like just barely past that point, and the truck just slid like we were on grease and down into the hole. And then when we hit the bottom of the hole, it just rolled over on its side. And we found the one rock in the mud hole, like boulder, so it crushed the passenger door where he was sitting, shattered his glass.
Man.
The fridge, since it had to fall with gravity, broke the quarter window, which was under the mud. And so as soon as that broke, it was like, I don't know, like something out of Indiana Jones or something. We're in the truck and the cab just starts filling with mud. And I just looked back and I was like, "Ah, crap," so I shut it off. My kid's leaning against the headliner, and, he got cut up a little bit in the glass. So he's like bleeding on my headliner. No. And I didn't even think about his safety. I look over, he's fine. He'll rub some dirt. I mean, he's going to get some mud in it anyway. And, yeah. We climbed out, and I got a cool picture of him standing on the door of the truck. And I get out and look at the thing. I was like, wow, there's like wheels to the sky almost, and oil's pouring out. So I had thought that like it had like come through the intake somehow, and that was weird to me. But the oil just came through the PCV breather on the back of the engine, and that's what poured out. It went through the throttle and went through the mass airflow sensor. And otherwise we tipped it back over. It took like the whole event was 10 minutes, and we were back in action, rolling down the trail again. I had to fish some things out of the hole, but really not that bad.
Jeez, I just looked at the video that I should have seen before. God, that must have sucked. I've had moments like that too, where somebody's like, "Ooh, it looks like you might be tippy," and you're like, "No, I'm not. I've got this. Everything's fine."
It didn't even feel tippy until the moment it slid sideways. It was just like, not a lateral G, but like that feeling. You're just like, "Oh, this is not a normal shift." And then,
and if you're going to the passenger side, it's just going to be lifting you up all of a sudden. It's going to feel, I'm sure, very, very odd.
It was funny.
That's good. That's a good way to look at it, for
at least
sure.
You can take it that way.
Yeah. Dang. Well, so is that, it's not that bad. It doesn't look that bad of damage, but is it like new door, new window, good to go again?
I had a new window. I actually had all the glass at home, so that was a piece of cake. I still have to find a door, but I hammered the door out. It actually shuts and opens easier than it did before I crushed it. But it crushed the door card. I think it sprung the jam a little bit. It was a good tip.
Okay.
But it's fine now. Everything's cool. I can drive around with AC on. That's what's important.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, in Arizona, yeah. Need it early and often.
Yeah, that is wild. So you're a Montero guy. I don't want to like stick a label on you, but I'm looking around and you're a Montero guy.
Yeah, Mitsubishi guy.
Well, okay. Yeah, it's a little wider. Although is there a C6 Corvette in one of these photos? Is that
Oh yeah,
yours
that makes an appearance. That's actually that's my dad's car. Everybody's always like, "Why is your the Corvette always in the background of everything?" And, it's kind of he turned 50 and bought a Corvette thing. It's like very normal.
Yeah, but that's very normal. It's not out of the ordinary at all. Did he already have the shoes, or did he have to get those too?
Yeah, I think he's got the shoes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it seems, again, normal. It's like the thing that they already have. How'd you get into these?
I just kind of fell into it. I turned 16. I went and looked at a bunch of different 4x4s. I looked at a Samurai, a Bronco 2, a Defender Series 2, or not a Defender, a Land Rover Series 2, all $1,000 cars, basically. And at the time, Land Rovers were dirt cheap. No one wanted them. And I went with a friend. He had a Montero, and we went to a junkyard to, I don't even know what the hell we were getting. We were getting parts for his truck, and we found a complete truck at the junkyard. And it was missing the carburetor, missing a couple other little pieces, but it was a complete truck. And so I asked the owner of the junkyard, I was like, hey, sell me that Montero. And this was a Ford-specific junkyard, so like he didn't really care for imports. And he was just like, yeah, $400. And I was like, do you take payments? Because I was 16 years old. I didn't know anything. And he's like, yeah, sure. Give me $200 now and $200 next month. It's yours. So he pulled it off of the lot, and I paid him the money, and then that was it. And then I was a Montero guy. I mean, just like that.
Just like that. That's a pretty good deal. For not only is it $400 a good deal, but the guy actually working with you on splitting it up into two payments and actually holding it that's not normal junkyard stuff. Like that's a good one.
It was legit. And then, I went back a bunch of other times, and like I bought the rest of the parts off of his other cars. And half the time I'd go in there and I'd bring whatever to the counter, and he'd be like, oh, have a better day, and just let me take it.
That's awesome. That's good. We have a local pick and pull yard that used to be pretty cool, and it is not cool anymore.
So not anymore.
Just like anything, it just goes through. It's owned by a big corporation now, and I'm sure they just have rules, right, that they just didn't have before.
Yeah.
So it makes a big difference. But that's awesome. Was that like a man? Colin's going to kill me because I don't know these
Go
things
ahead,
as well as was that a first generation Montero?
Yes, that was an '88, a two-door.
Okay. I owned one of those for about a half an hour.
Nice.
Well, I guess I owned it for probably a couple of days, but I drove it for about 15 minutes before it blew up. And then I towed it somewhere. And then I don't even remember what actually happened to it.
I thought Roy.
Yeah, I sold it. I just sold it. Like, it was like, oh, that's it. My Montero time is
over.
It was really nice too.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad one.
Yeah. Oh, I always thought that it'd be cool to do, a Toyota axle in the front or something. And that, that's it. I don't know. But put an LS in it or something. That wasn't going to happen then. So you went from that one. Did you immediately, since you became a Montero guy, did you get another one eventually? Or, quickly or?
Yeah, I drove that one around, and I did the teenager thing. I fixed it myself. Like, I didn't know anything, and I didn't even have a license.
Okay.
So I just drove it, no license, no insurance, for like a year, basically. And then, I got a better job because I was just like part-time T-shirt printer guy. And then I got like a full-time job. So I was like, well, I can get a better one now. So I traded that one in at a little like buy here, pay here. And I got like a 95 SR, like cooler one in my mind at the time. And I paid something like 20% interest on it.
Oh.
And I drove that one for a couple years, and I traded the two-door in on it. They actually gave me like $1,000 for it. And I had like just nothing into it.
That's
feeling good at that point.
Yeah. So I thought I got a great deal. And I just like kept buying different ones and selling and like slowly getting better cars. The one with the expensive interest, like I was never going to be able to pay that off. And I think it was like a $3,000 loan or something. So it was like pretty minuscule but it was a lot for me. I was like 18 years old. Like what I did as soon as I turned 18 was go buy this fucking thing. And me and my friends were just dipshits, man. We kind of just destroyed it. Like we found a construction site. It was right along the side of a main road. And we're on the road. We're doing 45, keeping up with traffic. And I just look off to the right, and they had dug this retention area out. And I was like, oh, my God, that looks like it's a jump, basically. And it looked like something out of like a motocross video game or something, because it was big. So we fly off the road, and we're in the dirt. I go off into this hole, and it was a big drop, like 6 feet. It didn't look very big, from the road, and like dirt flies everywhere, and I'm cruising.
Yeah.
And then I hit the other side of it to come out of it. And I think I don't know if I gained speed because of excitement, but I was cruising, man. And like the truck just hits the other side. It just goes vert. And like I had so much time. I had my friend in the passenger seat, and like we had so much time in the air to like, I looked to the left. There's people driving next to us, like traffic, and they're all looking at me like in shock and disbelief because there's this truck in the sky. And then I look to the right to see my friend, and he's just holding on to the handles of the truck for dear life. And I can see the shadow of the truck like way in the distance. Like we're just in the sky on this thing. And so it hits the ground hard, nosedives really hard. I didn't know how to jump a car. I had done it before with my two-door, but it was different than the two-door. The two-door just sailed, and also it wasn't fast. So you do a jump, you're doing it like 15, 20 miles an hour, no big deal. This was like stuntman shit in my mind, especially looking back. It was totally stupid. So the truck hits the ground. It just exhumes this huge ball of just hardened dirt. So the dirt clods fly up into the sky, and the wipers turn on. The rear view mirror breaks off. Like it just, the gravity just came crashing down hard, and it just goes down on all four. We cruise back, to the road, fall back in with traffic. And like we're just like having a heart attack. I was like, holy crap, I thought we were gonna like go over, because that we hit like when we hit the ground, we were looking at the ground, man, and it was bad. And so we drive it to his parents' house. This is on Thanksgiving, but it's like we shouldn't have even, we were going to his house to like eat with his family. And we get there, and we just get out and look at the truck. The truck kind of looks okay, but it's weird now. It drove fine. It like really drove fine, and nothing. It didn't make any weird noises or anything, but it looks weird. And so we kind of walk around it, and then I noticed there's a crease in the roof, right above the passenger door. And then I looked. The fender is actually like really pushed up really hard against the windshield frame, and the front frame of the truck has just dirt packed in it. There's dirt packed against the skid plate, and the skid plate's just caved in. And I kind of looked at it like, holy crap, I think I fucked this thing up. And so we do our thing and eat, do whatever, and we're just kind of laughing about like this chain of events and like why I did this in the first place. It just didn't make any sense other than you're 18, you do a thing, right? You don't even think about it, you just go and do it. And we're laughing about the traffic and like just looking at the people while we're in the sky and thinking it's so funny. So, long story short, we get back in the truck, we start driving it around again. And I think I started bitching about something about like, I don't even know what it was. But at that same exact moment, the windshield just shatters. And it just had a lot of tension on it from the body being all twisted up.
I guess, yeah.
And some weeks later, I kind of thought the truck was toast, but it was like I still owed everything on it.
Yeah.
And I got really lucky. And some weeks later, a woman runs a red light and T-bones me. And so, like,
has a way of fixing things,
right? And so, like, the truck spins around. Like, I just like did this. I like end up turning. I don't know. I don't know if it was 180 or 360. Like, I spun. Like, I didn't even. I was hit so hard because this woman just full speed, just right into the back of the truck. She hit the. She hit me on the driver's side rear axle.
Okay.
And I get out. Her car's ripped in half. There's 4 girls in it, and they're all teenagers. They get out, and they're all confused. And I get out. I look at them. I ask them if they're okay. I like feel my body. I'm like, okay, well, I'm okay. My truck's still running, and I look at it, and my truck looks fine. I'm like, oh shit, like this thing's a beast. So I pull it off the road. We call the cops, whatever. The fire department comes because like her car is I think at the time it was probably like a mid 2000s Chevy Malibu, and
Okay.
the front of her car is just gone. Like there's nothing there. There's the hood's just smashed into nothing. The fender's gone. Her engine, transaxle, everything. Like I think it like came out from the car a little bit, and the car's just kind of resting on top of it. So like,
God.
like this thing is annihilated. And the cops come. They start interrogating the girls. They start talking to me, and they're just livid with me. And they're like accusing me of all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I just got in a car accident. Like what are you guys talking about? And they're like, there's no way that car hit this truck. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm in a daze. I'm confused. And it was like kind of around this point, like I had shut the truck off because the cops were there. And then the fire department came. Luckily, the fire department came because these cops are like giving me the 10th degree. They're talking to the girls. The girls admitted fault. They're like, oh, I just ran the red light and hit him. And they were like, are you sure it was him? And they're like, I'm pretty sure it was him. And like, I'm just there like I don't know what to do. And I started thinking like, I'm probably going to jail today. Like, this is getting really bad. I'm sitting on the curb. Cops are yelling at me. I don't know how to answer them. And then the fire department shows up and they're looking around, checking some stuff out. They come over, they talk to me. They're like looking in my eyes and stuff and asking me some questions. And, I'm like, yeah, I feel fine. Like, I don't know like what to say. And then I tell them the story. They're looking at the intersection, looking at the tire marks in the street. And one of the firefighters looks at my tire, my wheel, and there's a chunk of her headlight like blinker assembly sticking out of the bead of the tire. It's like embedded into the aluminum and the rubber. And so he looks at that. He talks to the cops. Cops come over. They don't apologize to me. They're like, "Hey, you're a piece of shit off the road. We're out of here." Do the statement, do the thing. The girl's car gets towed. I guess I'm just going to drive out of here because they're like, hey, is your truck run? I was like, yeah, it runs. And so I go to start it. It doesn't start. And so I pop the hood to look at it. The battery's upside down. Like it had flipped upside down. It pulled the cables off of it. And it was only running before because it was just powered by the alternator.
Yeah.
And I flip it over. And like, oh, shit, I get my tools, fix this. And I jerry rig it, start it back up. And I'm like looking underneath the truck. It's weird looking, but it was weird looking before. So I realized it had pulled the trailing arm out of the frame. Like it tore the rubber and pulled the bolt and the washer through the little frame hole.
Through the mount, yeah.
Yeah, so I had to I don't even know how I did it, but I got it back in there. But I found the little donuts. I put them on there. They were split, but I put them back on, tightened it down, and then I drove it home. And it made all kinds of weird noises because the axle was bent. Like it was really bent. And it leaked out of the transmission now. It leaked out. It just leaked everywhere. And I got it home. And, fast forward to a few days later, the the girls who hit me, their insurance, they send an adjuster over, and they're like, wow, that car really did a number on this truck. It's like, not a single door jamb is straight. There's a crease in your roof. The axles moved back about 3 inches, and I was like, yeah, it really got me. It was pretty scary. And so they bought the truck off me, and I bought it back, and parted that one out and got another one. So I got out of that high interest loan. It's a very long, almost pointless story, but that was a Montero story for you.
So I have a question, and I'm trying to ask this in the most politically correct way possible. But our friends and I have had this conversation. I have a little bit of a little dirtbaggy, trashy background in my childhood. Not that I was a bad kid or anything, but like that's something I have to associate with. And when I hear your comments about the police and the whole situation, I want to ask, were you a bit of a dirtbag as a kid, or were you like a good kid and this was your first interaction with the police?
Oh, I was like the worst, most mischievous one.
Okay. So like you got into that situation and they're immediately like, is this kid high? What does he have on him?
I look exactly the same too. Long hair, except for now I got a t-shirt with my dog on it. He's a beard. Back then I'd be wearing like a Demu Borger t-shirt or, Morbid Angels, something probably a little more offensive.
Something miscreant.
I'm not saying that you had it coming from you or for you, but you knew it was going to happen.
That's usually always how it is. There was a lot of run-ins with the law. I was never like bad, just always mischievous. And I was always with those kids that did the thing that was like, oh shit, we shouldn't have done that. Yeah.
Oh, whoops. Oh, now we're running from the police.
Yeah.
I didn't
How
realize.
do I always find myself in these situations?
Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure it's like two different kinds of scenario that could have been. It's either this, or you're like the kid that like, this is the first time you've ever encountered the police and you're terrified. Like I wanted to know which one of those it was. I also the first part of the story, I thought this was going to be the first time you rolled a Montero. I just thought that might be a good way for that to end it.
Loop it back around.
Oh, okay, cool. My other follow-up question is going back even further. So you it sounds like you were looking for trucks immediately. Were you like interested in off-road and truck stuff at that point?
Yeah, I was Auto Trader kid, I grew up, late 90s, early. I think I got my first car in 2002. So like magazines were still really prevalent. And I was always like Peterson's 4-wheel drive, 4-wheel and off-road. Like I wrote those guys all the time. Like they probably got tired of like reading my things I would send to them, because I would send them the dumbest shit. They printed some of them. I kind of know those the 4-wheeler off-road guys. They're like on YouTube and Instagram now, and like I've kind of got to know them over the years. And I don't know if they know I'm that guy that would send those things in, but it was a regular thing. So I was always in their ancient paper DMs.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, I never wrote in, but I just loved. I mean, I still love magazines. It's like I am so sad about the magazines that are gone.
Era that magazines are the thing.
Yeah, things are different. In some ways they're better, but it is sad. Auto Trader is a fun one. God, how long ago was it? Must have been like 2 years ago. I had run across a 80s Auto Trader. Nice. And it was insane. It was like, I'm not a big muscle car guy, but it was just chock full of 67 through 69 Camaros for like $4,000. And I was just like, wow, this is, if anybody was paying attention at this point, they could have, I'm sure that people were. I'm sure that plenty of people, inadvertently kept those cars.
It was halfway the only way to buy a car back then, other than freaking driving by a lot.
Which is funny, the buy here, pay here thing. Like, I definitely remember just trolling those places looking for cars.
Mm-hmm. Like, oh, totally.
I almost bought a $400 Subaru GL one time at one of those lots, and it was like I had $300 or something, and they wouldn't come down on the price, and they wanted to finance the rest of it for probably 80% interest or something. And I was like, no, I can't get into a car payment. I don't have a job right now. That's bad. Cool. Well, yeah, I mean, so you've been looking at and interested in off-road stuff for a while then.
Yeah, I almost bought, I was almost a Bronco guy. So as I went through these different vehicles and going to people's houses to look at 4x4s, like I had I think an early 80s Cherokee Chief. It was the orange with the black checker, the one that you always see. Some redneck dude owned it. It was kind of rusted out, but I think he wanted like $300 for it. And I was like, I can afford this. This will be great. And I was going to buy that, but I had to go talk to my grandma to make sure she would allow me to get my money out of the bank. So by the time I did all those things, I couldn't get a ride back to this dude's house to go buy the thing. So then I go back to the drawing board. I went and looked at the Series 2 Land Rover. My grandfather came with me on that one, and I was dead set on it. It was the most expensive vehicle I looked at. It was like $1,200. It didn't run. Hadn't run in a long time. It was one of those parked ran when parked.
Ran when parked. Oh, yes.
I was totally in love with it. My grandfather was like, you're not going to be able to get parts of this or fix it. I can't help you because it's not a Chevy. And the owner of it was like, oh, yeah, this thing looks great. Like, if you put a battery in it, it'll probably start up. It's been sitting here for about a decade, though. And he had all the catalogs. He said, if you want anything, everything has to come out of these paper catalogs. So, it's all there. And so I sat in it. I was just totally in love with it. And I pushed the clutch in or the brake in. I don't even remember. It's been so long. But I pushed a pedal. And whatever that pedal was attached to, whatever master cylinder, slave cylinder, whatever, just popped. And the fluid just came out of it, and I get out and look around and oh, it's actively leaking now. Maybe this is a bad idea. This is an omen not to buy this car.
Yeah, you really dodged a bullet.
It was all the money I had. I had only the amount to buy it, so I couldn't even buy it and then fix it. And so my grandfather was like, "No, don't do it," and so I didn't. And then I found the Bronco, and I loved the Bronco. It belonged to a friend. I had been four-wheeling with him. He had chopped the roof off of it. It had a roll bar, but the roll bar was made out of PVC and painted black. So it wasn't a real roll bar. And
I mean, looked like something.
It looked the part, and it had a bikini top, and it was flat black, so it was cool as hell on 33s, which are huge in that era. And so, this is a monster truck, and I just loved it. And he was like, "I'll sell it to you for $200." And it ran and drove and everything, and it was beat to hell because he rock crawled it. And I have vivid memories of it. We would flex it out on rocks, and you had to hold the doors shut because it would twist up so bad that the doors would pop open, and the hood would actually shift over the fender. And it had a lot of suspension travel, but it also had a lot of frame twist. And so it was really kind of capable. And I loved it. And I showed it to my grandma, and she was like, no, you can't, you're going to die. No. And so she shot that down. And then the Montero thing happened. I ran away from home, and then the Montero thing happened because no one was there to stop me.
Uh-huh.
Okay. I see what we're working with here. I love it.
I had to steal all my own money out of my bank account.
That's
my grandma was like, "You're going to save this money and be something, right?" And I couldn't. She was a signer, so I couldn't get money out, and it wasn't a real debit card. So I don't even remember what I did. I think I had a friend who had the same bank, and we went in there, and we were just kind of like, yeah, I'm going to sign on this account and pull my money out.
Man, there are a bunch of rules in place because people do shit like that.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep, I get it. That's wild. What I had a question, and then I've really fallen back into what we're what we're talking about there. Okay, so first Montero, the jump. Oh no, wait,
That's the second one.
that's second Montero.
The second Montero.
And then that one got wrecked, and then you parted it out, and then another one.
Yeah, I think I bought probably 3 or 4 between that and then the one that I'm currently driving. I bought that one in 2005, I think, as an adult, like as a responsible adult. Like I had a good job and like, credit.
Like a credit score.
Yeah. So I had a whole bunch of Monteros between then, all in various states of disrepair or not running.
Yeah.
And then I found, my current truck. It was like, I don't remember how many miles it had, maybe 120,000, which was low to me, right? Because everything I had a fucking 250,000 miles on it. And it was at another buy here, pay here for $10,000. And I had to have it, man. I went over, I checked it out. Like I said, I had credit now because I had bought the other thing. I had made some other irresponsible purchases on credit cards, like TVs, video games, food, that kind of stuff. Oh, yeah. And so this time I decided to be savvy, and I went to the bank ahead of time, and I was like, got approved for the loan, got them to give me basically a blank check for up to, the amount of money I needed. Yeah. And I went into this dealership, told the guy, and he's trying to close. He's just a regular dude trying to close for the night. And I was like, I'm taking that truck. I'll write you a check right now. And he's like, oh, I can't. Yeah, I'll sell it to you, but we can't get this done today. And I was like, I've got somewhere I need to be tomorrow. And so I made him stay late. We go through all the title, all the stuff. He's weirded out by my little paper check thing. He doesn't believe it's a real, he'd never seen it before. And so he calls my bank. They're still awake in India or whatever, wherever the hell they're at. And they approve it. They sign it. I sign it. I write the amount in, and he's kind of weirded out. He didn't want to give me the keys. And I was like, well, there's the money. Send the bank the title, and thanks for selling me a car. And so, I get out of there. We do all this stuff. I drive it home, and the thing is beautiful. Even though it's got, somewhat high miles, it's, really well maintained. It smells new still. It was owned by a doctor. I found his information later. And I took it home that night, stripped the running boards off of it, and then the very next morning, I took it four-wheeling with my friends. That's why I needed to have it, because I didn't have a car to go four-wheeling, and I wanted to go on this wheeling trip.
Yeah.
So I got these little tiny 30-inch tires that it came with. Mm-hmm. I meet my friends out in the morning. A bunch of them are like, oh, damn, you got a new truck. And it's like, yeah, I do. And this is a newer Montero. You guys aren't even wheeling these things very much yet. And we hit the trail, and I'm having a great time. And this is my first vehicle that has I don't know, any good features. Well, actually, my 94 had a rear locker, but I don't think it worked very well. This one, everything worked. And so I've got a rear locker, and I've got a brand new to me truck. And so we get to some obstacles and stuff, and everybody's kind of going around it. And then one of my friends, he's got 33s, and he goes over these big rocks. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. This is happening. And so I'm trying it. I can't get up it. And then I kind of do the old, mash the throttle, give it 2 scoops, so to speak, and bounce over some stuff, crush both catalytic converters, and bent my drive shaft like a banana, really. And we wheeled the whole thing. I got to check engine light now, and I'm like, oh, crap, already? Why did you have to do that? I'm like, yeah. I'm still young at this point. I'm 21-ish, or maybe I'm 20. I don't know. I don't think I could drink yet. So we wheel the whole trail. I get on the highway, and it's just shake. It makes you feel like you got to take a shit. It shakes so bad. And I got to go on the highway for 2 hours
Oh my God.
And
Yikes.
I'm doing like 35 miles an hour. It's terrible. And I drove it like that because I couldn't afford more than just the car payment. So I couldn't actually afford to fix it either. And so I had check engine lights, bent drive shaft, and I had to take surface streets everywhere. Everybody hated me because I had to drive all slow. Took me forever to do anything. And yeah, that was the start of the truck on its side thing.
How quickly from there did like the modification ramp up? Like, was that the thing where you had to learn how to work on it, so you started tinkering, or were you already
pretty much? Like, I had kind of learned to wrench a little bit with the previous ones, but I honestly I didn't know anything. It was just kind of like, we'll try some stuff, and if it works, it works.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this truck, it was a lot higher stakes because it was actual money, and I needed it to go to work at my actual like adult job. And it was around this time like I had my son too, so I have now a baby, and I can't like fail him. And so now I gotta like,
oh man,
I gotta stop doing dumb shit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of when I decided to start modding everything, and then learning how to weld and learning just like anything I could, because I couldn't afford to build it all awesome. I couldn't afford to pay someone to do it. I had to just do it myself.
Yeah. So Colin and I think, so we're younger parents. I was a bit younger than Colin, but still young parents and car people, right? So like that rings true. Like trying to figure that stuff out. Like we do this all the time, and I always think it's funny. We always end up talking about cars, and then I'm always like, it's supposed to be truck stuff, but whatever. I vividly remember I had a stripped out Honda Civic with a swap and a bunch of stuff done to it, and then we were having a baby, and that's what got me back into Volkswagens was at that time, because I needed something that was reliable,
quote unquote,
and had like air conditioning and windows that all worked and things like that. So like I didn't have to. I sold that car and I made a bunch of money on it, which was great because, I put a lot of work into it. But then I got a Jetta that was like way newer and way nicer. And at the time I was like, this is such a nice car. And then it proceeded to be a gigantic pile of crap for many, 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 many years. And I kept it way too long. But yeah, like that, like this is my car. I have to go to work because if I don't go to work, I mean, there's just no option. It's not like that's just the thing. I have to go to work. I have to pick this kid up from daycare. I have to do all these things. And I also have to modify cars because I'm an idiot.
It can't be stock.
Right. I remember specifically like with that truck going from, I had the 30-inch tires, and then one of my friends had gotten new tires, and he was basically throwing away his 33s, which had tons of plugs in them. I think one of them might have been baldish. And I was like, I'll take them. I need like big tires to be cool. And so I put those on, drove around those for a little bit, but like they were so bad that it kind of made me have to get new tires even sooner than if I had just kept the 30s. And I wanted to be the guy. I was like, well, the next most obvious step is 35s. So
of course,
I just bought the 35s, and 35 13.5s, extra wide too.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
And I put those on, just no lift, just put them on there, and it was terrible. I had no regear. It was just the worst thing. And then every time we went four-wheeling, I was the guy who's like, oh, my transmission's overheating, my engine's overheating too. Like, I think I made it less capable with bigger tires.
Yeah.
That's a special skill.
Yeah. And the whole thing was, well, I got to get good tires to be a reliable daily driver and like do all the things.
It's the things we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll ride better.
Kinda. I felt better about it.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah. So that basically led you to, so you seem to be at like peak Montero currently with a lot of stuff going on. Like it's not just like kind of tinkering on some rigs. It looks like at this point it's the one that went into the quicksand, as I was thinking earlier, that one's set up. Like it's got a lot going on. What have you done with that?
Yeah, I drove it into the ground for a long time, and then as I aged a little bit and became more responsible, I guess. Also, during all of this, I had been buying and selling different Monteros and pickups. So, like, I've had like 26 Monteros
Wow.
and three Mighty Maxes and a Delica and a bunch of stuff. Like, I buy anything like a dumbass. But like this truck, I've just kept the whole time, and like I wheeled it, beat it up, like I said, drove it into the ground, and I was going to sell it because it was in such bad shape. I needed to do a ton of maintenance to it. It now had 200,000 miles on it of just never did anything to it. I just drove it and put oil in it
Use.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And, but I had been learning on other vehicles like custom fab, and like it got me into custom fab shops and like doing actual work and like learning a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And, that was kind of the thing is I had a ton of friends who were in four wheel drives, and everybody wants stuff done. So I'll be like, hey, I'll do it cheap, but it's going to be whatever it is. And
Promises.
so I picked it up really fast. Like I got really good, and I did a lot of bad stuff to other people's cars, and my own, of course. Like I have undid almost everything that I had done initially. Like I'm on my third set of rock sliders, my second rear bumper. It's been a bunch of stuff, but after I ran it into the ground, it just didn't seem really fixable, and it was like I'll buy a newer vehicle and start over, and then I'll just get another beater Montero and build that up. And
Yeah.
so I bought a 2007 GX470, and this was in like I don't know 2013 or 2012, so it was like
Wow.
kind of newer,
That's a
and
nice car.
no one was wheeling those, and I just
Yeah.
like kind of looked at it online. And I was like, I could four wheel this. I'll do it.
Kind of looks
And
like a Montero.
yeah,
Squid.
that was the seller. Is like I wanted a 100 series Land Cruiser, but it's got a hatch, and
Yeah.
the hatchback would hit my canoe. And I was like, well, I can't have that. It's got to have a swing open gate like the Montero, otherwise no deal. So I buy the GX, and I'm going to sell the Montero, buy another Montero, and like start fresh. And I wanted to do the axle swap and do all this awesome stuff. And then that didn't happen. I couldn't part with it. I had a guy who was going to buy the truck for like $3,500 because it still ran and drove. You could still four wheel it. It was just really clapped out. Like nothing was good. It did not drive good. The tires were shit. Heater core was bypassed. Like it needed a lot of work, and the interior was trashed, and the gas tank was crushed. Like there was just
The list keeps
nothing
going.
redeemable about it. It was easier to start over. Um, but I had a sentimental attachment to it. I couldn't sell it to him, and I felt bad. And then one of my friends was like, "We're gonna go do the Rubicon. You need to go." And I was like, "Oh shit!" Like I always wanted to do that. Like this is like okay, I'll fix my Montero, and I'm gonna take that. And so
Yeah.
that like kind of motivated me. I did everything, fixed everything on it, like every mechanical issue it had, I fixed it. I got it back to like more than 100%, better than it actually had ever been because of this
Nice.
trip. And I think that I can't remember the year that was, but I don't know if it was 16 or something. Like I've skipped a lot of time here. Um, so it fixed everything. I bought another one that had a really nice interior and a full size gas tank. I swapped all of its interior gas tank onto my truck, and then I sold that truck for exactly what I paid for it. And
Nice.
so free interior, free gas tank, and then I just did everything. I did. I had a front locker at that time, but it was just a Detroit. I had the crawler gears at that time because I had built it up over the years.
Yeah.
But then I took it. I did the Rubicon, and it just performed. It was great. But then, like driving home from that trip, I was like, "Oh, now I gotta like I got to bump this up to the next step. Like, I've done everything. Like, I'd done all the hard trails in Arizona. Like, I had really like done it, like a lot of stuff. And then now that I had done the Rubicon, it was just kind of like, okay, well, oh, and the new suspension I just put on the truck was trash already because I did the Rubicon on 35s, and like I had a bent upper control arm, bent idler, the usual Montero stuff. And it was like, not a big deal. I have more. I'll fix this. But then I'm driving home and I'm just like, okay, I get a Dana 44. I know where there's one at that will do the job. And I start like pricing everything out in my head. And I got my friend in the passenger seat. And I'm like, all right, cool. Price out an ARB air locker, price out the 488s, digging these things out. And so like I come up with this arbitrary number like as we're driving. And I'm like, okay, cool. This is going to cost us about $6,500. I'll do it if you do it. And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm in 100%. And I was like, I got it all in my head. I know exactly how we're going to do it. This will be my third SAS because I had done leaf sprung and then I had done one on coils on a ZR2 Blazer, like a Chevy Blazer 2-door.
Oh, okay.
And so I had learned and I had worked with other guys who had done them and like they turned out really, really nice. So like I had the confidence to do it. I had just like everything in my head, like I'm going to do this. And like, cause now the truck's good. Like it's a great truck again. It's got fresh tires on it. It's got everything, I need to do some suspension work on it. And so, obviously if it needs an upper control arm, let's just throw an axle under it and be done.
Time to cut it up.
So like, and I'm talking to my friend, like, cause he's shotgun. Like I think it's a 12-hour drive from Tahoe to Phoenix. So we had a lot of time to talk about this.
Yeah. A lot of time to think.
It just like, it all came together and I was like, okay, cool. We can knock this out over the next couple years. I'll probably buy something else to 4-wheel in the meantime. And dude, like I got home and it was like, okay, I found another axle. I found another truss kit. Here, we'll both order this stuff. And so like it just kept being this thing that every time I was going to order something or he was going to order something from the list, it was like, oh shit, well, like if you're going to order it, then I'm going to order it, And so we buy all this stuff. And there was a couple times too where I was like, oh, this is, I don't know, it's like a lot of money for, King coilovers. Like,
yeah,
you buy the stuff. And dude, just like that, it was like, oh crap, we have like everything. I had built the front axle and I had been doing all this stuff like also like simultaneously going through a divorce. So it's like I have a lot of stuff on my plate and I'm just like somehow knocking it out of the park. And like I built 2 axles in my garage. They're awesome. They're perfect. Everything's lining up. Everything measures out. Order like links and stuff from Metal Cloak and then I had everything and it was like, well, I guess it's time to break out the torch and cut it all off. And that's like that's like a big step. And this is my daily driver too, so it's kind of like a thing, So I had bought an LS 400 is what I did.
Okay.
And I'll drive this while I SAS that. And I bought the LS 400 because I was like, oh, then I'll swamp a V8 after that.
Toner car.
Easy, right? And I bought some more Monteros before then and
Of course.
As one does.
It sounds like I have a bunch of money. I don't. They're all cheap. Everything's a piece of shit.
I get it. I'm tracking. Don't worry.
So before I know it, like SAS is done. 6 months, start to finish. Like I can't even believe it. I'm like going to take it on the road already. And it's terrible. It leans it's like driving a Montero on top of a motorcycle.
Oh my God.
It is so, so bad. And like that first drive was, well, I also had a rooftop tent on it because I needed a place to put it. So I put it on the roof of the truck naturally.
That's where it goes.
And so like I drive to the gas station and it's just white knuckles. It leans so hard. Like when you turn at 5 miles an hour, you're looking at the street through the passenger side. And it feels worse than when, a couple months ago, I tipped the truck over. That's how bad it was. And because I hadn't done anything yet. There's like a lot of stuff to set up. You got to set up your secondary, your primary adjusters, or there's all kinds of spring stuff. Like I had just put it on there and I was like, it's time to drive.
Well,
And take it on the road. And luckily I bought the coilovers from a tuner. So they were actually, they had the right springs. And like I just on the phone, we tightened them up, made some adjustments. It made it better. I took the rooftop tent off.
That's good.
And it calmed down quite a bit. And the tuner was like, "You're not running a sway bar." And I was like, "No, dude, sway bars are for pussies." Like, dude, you're in a whole new league now. You're gonna have to get a sway bar. Like your coilovers don't know what center is. They need something like even this lightest bar to tell it where to be.
Yeah.
And so I guess this makes sense. And I'm like, all right, that's stupid. And so I throw the stock rear sway bar on. I take it for a drive. It's substantially better. I'm like, okay, cool. Like this might be salvageable because I kind of thought I ruined my truck.
Oh, no.
And then also, mine took 6 months to do, and then I did the second one in like 6 weekend days, I guess.
Wow.
So that one went fast. So I effectively ruined my truck and my friend's truck in my mind. I'm like, this is bad. But the Blazer I had done was great. Like, why was the Blazer so good? Because it had 2 sway bars. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And so I drive it for some months with just 1 sway bar on, just white knuckle everywhere. Get on the highway, 75. It's scary, but it's doable, you know. And then I got the front sway bar and everything was amazing. And that was like really good. And then basically, well, now we had to go do the Rubicon again and see what it's like on a solid axle.
Let's see what else.
And yeah, so we go the next year on axle swaps that have just basically been untested. And it was awesome. Like we drove all the way to Tahoe. Trucks both drove great. Tracked good. I had a blowout. I can get into that. It was another really fun story. But we did the whole trail. I got the sway bars from Rock Jock. So they're like, we disconnect them, do the 4-wheeling, connect them back on, hit the highway. They're great. And then with the new sway bar, it has enough tension that I got rid of the rear sway bar. It just didn't need it.
Nice.
It probably could use it, but I feel like mine already handles really too tight. So it's what I don't want to put another one on.
Got it.
But so I had my new 35s that I had bought for the Rubicon the previous year, and we're out there 4-wheeling. And I guess been 4-wheeling for like almost 2 decades at this point. And I have a passenger with me. I picked him up in California. He wanted to experience the Rubicon. And so we're driving around and he's like, man, isn't this really hard on tires? Like we're driving over these rocks. And I was like, dude, I have literally never had a flat. Like since,
no,
like this is not a thing. Like no, it's fine, dude. I buy good tires, right? Like,
yeah,
we're cool. And we're halfway through the trail, and I just start hearing this psst, psst. And like, dude, these are brand new tires. They're like 2 years old, 3 years on a date code. And they were E-rated though. That was all I could get for that size. I wanted to get all-terrain, so I got the Nitto Terra grapplers or whatever.
Sure.
All-terrains. Ridge grapplers. That's what they were.
Yeah, they're like that.
And yeah, like a hybrid tire. As I'm 4-wheeling, the sidewalls are flexing and it's tearing them.
Oh my God.
So we wheel the trail, and now I have 3 out of 4 tires are just leaking like crazy.
No. Wow.
But they only leak when the tire tear hits the ground.
Okay.
Well, except for one of them. One of them just tore and blew the fuck out. Like there was nothing I could do about that. But the other ones, they were okay. And when I aired them up all the way, they didn't leak as bad.
Okay, yeah.
Well, plus you got more time because they're aired up so far. It's fine.
Yeah. There's more to go.
Yeah.
And so this, obviously, because I said I've never had a flat on the trail. I've had flats on the road from road debris or whatever, but I've never had a flat on the trail up until this point, and now I have 3. So when I bought my first set of 35s, I think that was in like 2005 or 6 or something like that.
Okay.
When I got my next set of tires, I took the best one out of that set and I put it on the spare.
Of course. Yeah. What?
Right. So fast forward a whole shitload of years. I got to put this fucking tire on the truck.
Mm-hmm.
So I throw it on there. It's got it's got some tread on it, but it's not a great tire. It's kind of old. Whatever. And we hit the highway. I'm just talking, I'm driving one hand because this thing drives great. And
so it's fine.
Yeah, and we're on a 2-lane highway, and the spare just explodes. Like it was so crazy. It looked like someone took like black Legos, really, and just threw them out the window. Like all the tread blocks just came off and went into the sky. And so oncoming traffic has to swerve because my tire went from a 35 to like a 40. It got huge. And so it pulled me into oncoming traffic.
Yeah.
And so I got to swerve back, get back in my lane. Their cars are in the dirt. I'm driving. I pull over. Everybody's cool where everything's fine. But and then I had to borrow a tire from a friend.
Yeah.
And when we couldn't get any tires in Tahoe, somehow no one has any 35s there.
Yeah.
Like, they had one Maxxis 35 they wanted to sell me for like $500. And I was like, well, that's not happening.
Yeah.
God. That is gnarly.
The cool thing about that was when I got home, I bought my 35s just a couple of years before, and I took them to discount, and I was like, look at these fucking things. And so they warrantied them out, and I was like, hey, can I get 37s? And they're like, yeah, you got to pay the difference. And I ended up getting my 37s for like $300.
Oh my God.
Perfect.
Yeah, that's good. Man, this winter we had an issue, similar thing where like same thing where you're tempting fate, where every year the snow wheeling thing has gone on, and it's like, some people are running beadlocks, some people aren't at all, some people have bead grip stuff, and we always talk about I have beadlocks on my truck, and I always joke around that they're stupid. None of us have ever lost a bead in the snow or anything. Like, it just never happened. And sure enough, this year we were in this like really weird spot with a bunch of fresh snow, and one of the guys, our buddy Mike, was trying to turn around and he lost a bead. I was like, oh, whoops. I guess that does happen. And now it's 6:00 on a Saturday, and we're supposed to be somewhere at 5:30, and his poor little son is trying to like hang out, and we're just like, oh no. It was fine. We've all seen people pop off beads and called them idiots enough times that we knew exactly what to do. But I was like, oh, so it does happen. Turns out. Well, that's a good story. So your vehicle modifications, the big ones seem to have come from the Rubicon. So now that we're doing a Rubicon trip in a few days, not what should we expect that we're going to break and then modify, but like, what's your, like, we're all first timers basically. I've done part of it, but everybody else, I think no one else has been there at all. We've been to the area, but like, that's it. What's your take? What's your hot tips?
Let's see. I think, so I've driven the Rubicon twice, and I've ridden it like 6 times.
Okay.
I guess my advice is just take it nice and slow, and don't try to be somewhere that, like, don't set unrealistic goals on it.
Okay.
So I think it's like you try to go a little faster to make it to Buck Island or to make it to a specific camp. And that's always when something happens, and it always happens at night. And then you're like fixing a broken, because I mean, every time I've gone, like, we've had like something break. I haven't broken anything on the Rubicon. I've broken things on other trails, but
yeah. Every
time I've gone on the Rubicon, someone has broken a CV, someone has broken a tie rod or an idler arm. But it's really just minor stuff like that. But those things can, lead you into the night pretty deep. And I would rather just be hanging out at camp and fixing something casually if necessary, rather than being in the trail trying to fix it, because people would wheel the trail all night and they will like run into you in the middle of the night and like, oh shit, there's a truck in the trail. So.
Yeah.
I guess I didn't think about that part.
Yeah. That's always been my view on it. Is like, don't
rush it.
Actually, don't rush. Just take your time. Give yourself as much time as you can give yourself.
Yep.
And just go with the flow.
Mike, we were just talking about, ironically enough, shared a podcast, and I mentioned that I'm like at my limit of my capacity of Rubicon information. Like, I just don't want to know anymore. Like Jesse said, I just don't want to know. Like, I'm fine. I got to have some element of surprise. Like, but he shared this podcast, and I was working, and I threw it on the background and just kind of listened to it for a while. And they actually had some interesting points too. Same sort of thing though. They were saying like, hey, I've done this trail 25 times or whatever. I can do this to this in 2 hours. Like, that is possible. It's something that is doable for me. I know all the lines. I know what I don't want to hit. I know what's optional for me to like have fun and take time on and what's not. But anybody else, like, don't put a time on it. Like, just do it. Just go through, do it, camp at the place you end up, like set like very realistic goals and have fun. Don't worry about, I got to make it to here or here. And he's like, if you do, and that you like that, that's great.
Cool.
But like, also you're going to bypass things and be rushing and say, well, I can't stay here. I can't watch this other rig do this thing because I got to be here at this certain time. Like, it makes sense to me to just relax and chill and do it.
I would say definitely give yourself an extra day to like try to take in the sights, like slow it down, especially if you have a bigger group. Obviously it takes more time, but like I highly recommend that like stop and spend the day at Buck Island.
That's crazy. That's what I said too.
Yeah.
And most people just hang out there and fish or swim and take it in. It's really pretty. But if you kind of hike to the other side of the lake, opposite side of the lake from where the camps and stuff are, there are like huge waterfalls. There's all kinds of stuff that if you can just like hike cross country and like look around, it's totally worth it. And you'll spend a day out there. You won't see anybody because everybody's wheeling. There's not a bunch of people, and all the little ponds and everything back in there is just everything pristine. There's no beer cans. There's no broken bottles. Like, you can go back there. It's worth it. It's totally worth it. Like, especially if you're into nature bullshit and being away from people. It's awesome. And there's a lot of really good campsites right around the lake. So like the popular one is at the dam and then on top of the dam. But if you feeling, I don't know, a little more frisky and you want to go past those points a little bit, on the right-hand side of the trail, it goes down to the lake, and there's a couple different campsites. There's shitters down there and everything. They're way less popular. They're super nice. You can fit, 6-8 rigs down in there, and there's usually not people camping down there. So it's really nice, and it's quiet. It's beautiful. You can actually see the waterfalls across the lake from those campsites. I don't know why they're not more popular. Well, now, cat's out of the bag. It'll be great.
Well, our tens of listeners are going to be flocking to that location.
Watch out.
So cool. Also, we can just edit that out.
Yeah, I'll bleep every bit of
it. I like that. That's a good one. That's awesome. Okay, thank you. Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that I don't have any driving home thinking about doing anything stupid to my rig, but I'm sure I will.
Well,
I was looking at, I'm going to take us way off topic for 1 second because I'm driving this bus.
Yeah, you're driving it. So
I was at a local shop using their RTI ramp, and shout out to Technique Vehicle Outfitters, I guess. I was looking at one of their employees 80 series, and it's 3-linked, and I wanted to 3-link mine so bad. And then I gave up on it because I had an engine swap and I just didn't do it. Right. But I'm looking at his truck and I'm like, that's it. That's the next step. Like, it's definitely good.
You have my permission.
Thank you.
Wow. Look at that.
I like it. All right. Perfect. The only thing that sucks is his upper link is where my passenger side exhaust lives, like in full.
Because he's got the stock engine in there.
Yeah. So there's some finagling that I'd have to figure out. Because obviously you can't, I can't, there's a length thing, right? Yeah. I can't like just make it whatever length I want. So
you drive an 80?
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you.
You could make it any length you want. It's just,
yeah, well then I don't want to have the situation where it's so terrible. Yeah. So anyways, I don't know. It's something I've definitely wanted to do, but I think Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to go too far down that path.
I had an 80 series once.
I assume you did. You've had a bunch of things. Did you have it because you wanted it or because you were flipping it or both?
I got it for parts because I was working on another guy's 80 and he needed an engine and this one had a good engine and my friend had rolled this one. So I was like, oh, buy this rolled one and put the engine in your good one. And yeah, it was a thing. So I drove it around with the roof caved in and stuff. So it was cool. I towed it with the Montero. It was actually pretty good.
That's good. I don't want to call myself like I was joking around about you being a Montero guy, so sorry, but like I don't want to call myself an 80 series guy, but I really like
but
mine.
You are.
Yeah. But I've only had two. I had one that I flipped and the one that I drive. But I've had it for like 10 years now.
Yeah.
I've put 120,000 miles on it probably. I've done a motor swap. I've done a million other things to it. I bought it pretty much stock. And I love it. Like I have unlimited money dream includes keeping it and building it. Like it just doesn't, it's like, not like I would just, it's like the Montero thing, right? Like, oh, I've already got it. Like I'm not going to off it for something else. Like, sure, it's beat to shit, but I love it. And the interior is very nice because that's what I care about. Like, I don't know. So it's a good rig. I think it's fun.
So I guess where I'm going to steer this is since you were into the fab side of things, and I know via the internet is basically how I learned about you from forever ago when I was on my Montero kick as well. And it was probably a couple years after I came across you via the internet. It was probably, I would assume it was on Expedition Portal. And that's when adventure driven design kind of started coming out. And you, if I'm remembering correctly, had like something to do with the starting of that. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, I started that. Yeah.
Okay. if we need to leave it at that, that's fine.
No, that's cool. Like, it was a neat thing. Kind of started designing some parts and making some stuff. I had been making a lot of stuff already for dudes.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of like under the table, unofficial.
Yes.
I'll make 10 of these things. And, I always tried to make everything. This is kind of my downfall is Montero guys were all cheap. And I'm kind of cheap. So I've gotten better now. Now I buy really high quality parts and I've learned my lesson. But at the time, it was like everybody wanted cheap stuff for their Montero. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll design something, figure out a reasonable price, and kind of try to find that like value of here's a pretty decent part for a decent price.
Sure.
And then obviously I stand behind anything, people had issues with certain things and I'd fix everything. Like that was kind of the whole like driving force behind that was, okay, if I can make 10 of them and make it so that way I can make another thing, like this will be worth it to me. And it was kind of like a labor of love in the beginning just to get more things out there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's kind of what I did. And then it became, I don't know, something that I didn't like to do. It got weird. I had gotten like a friend had helped me set up a business and like try to be more legit with everything. But then with that came like kind of like the engineer versus accountant kind of thing, where it was like, I want to make a better thing and I want to get like certain things, to bring to life. And well, we still got to make money and we still got to like do stuff to exist. And I'm like, well, if we can exist, that's the thing. Like that's good enough for me. And I don't need to make any money. Like I just want to be cool, right? But then it came like importing parts that I didn't care about and like retail stuff and I didn't like the prices of things, and I didn't like being that guy. That just did not come natural to me. I didn't like selling other people's stuff. I didn't like putting my name on other people's stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to do I wanted to go back and revisit things that I made before.
Right.
I wanted to go back and make things that I made on a budget. I wanted to make them better because now I had a bigger budget because I'm selling things, right? So I wanted to go back and okay, we can continue to improve. And it was just a personality clash. And then that's kind of when I was like, all right, clearly this is not, I'm not a business person.
Mm-hmm.
I just going to go be a scientist on my own, and that'll be it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's fair. I mean, that happens to a lot of, small upstart type deals. And when it all started, it was during a time where I had a Montero and there wasn't anyone that had anything for Monteros, in general, basically. And so it was a lot of it was, and this was part of the reasons I really liked the Montero, was a lot of it was just people had found out, okay, this part from this car works on a Montero and does X. And it was this kind of Lego building type deal of you can take this from that one, this from this generation, and the gears all, the diffs going in either way from sport to the full size to whatever, and from a third gen to a second gen, it all just kind of works together. And that's kind of why I got it, because I was okay, cool, I can kind of piece together a vehicle. And then the more necessary parts is what adventure driven design started to make, having actual springs for them and things like that. So I was one of the very early ones that bought when you had coil springs and the track bar and all of those things. I was oh no, I'm 100% behind these guys, and just threw money at it to build my Montero. And so I also think that you guys starting that kind of launched the Montero popularity into a different stratosphere than it was in when I had bought mine, which is really cool. So I will say, even if it didn't work out, for you in a making you feel as good about it as you wanted to, I will say I think you had a huge fingerprint on the Montero scene, and it shows today with more people doing more stuff for Monteros. So
yeah, it definitely took off. It got way bigger than I expected, and it brought a lot of people into the platform. And that was also one of the I loved that part of it, and I loved meeting new people and helping people out. I just loved having my hands in literally everybody's builds.
Yeah.
And I thought that was the coolest thing. But the part I didn't like was that I had all these people who I didn't know personally. They just trusted me with everything.
Oh.
And it was fine when it was things that I had put together myself. And I spec'd out the springs, I did that, but there was a learning curve with it too.
Sure.
I always wanted to go back and revisit the things and make them better. And some people had some problems with certain springs, and so we changed the rates. And I'm returning things. The guys are oh man, these are terrible. I'm all right, you know what? I'm gonna buy them back off you. I'm gonna send you something new. Try these. It's I upped the rate. I changed whatever I did, and it was just a thing. But there were so many other pieces that were, especially the retail side, with the Bilstein shocks, and because those were just Ford F-150 shocks, and that's what we were doing before there were things. But now things started to come out. They're people started modifying Fox shocks. I did that. I got a tuner to make me some shocks. I made the little top hats and modded those things over, and it was just a world of difference. And everybody either loved the Bilsteins or they hated them. They weren't geared, they weren't valved for the truck. So like
Mm-hmm.
it could ruin your vehicle. Like you put them on there, you're like, oh my God, this is scary to drive. Or if you're wheeling all the time, you're like, hey, this is great. And like that kind of thing, like it kind of sucked because there was a lot of people who bought a Montero and they wanted to lift it and they wanted to go off road, but you know, they wanted it to drive decent still. And that was like, here's a concept for me. I'm trying to make it do everything. And
Yeah.
it was tough. So that I kind of didn't like, and I didn't like that like I couldn't help every single person like make their vehicle exactly the way they wanted it. And so that also became kind of hard. Like I was like overextending myself. I was literally sending guys tools in different states because they'd get to a point like I'm stuck. I can't do this. Like what do I need? And I'm like, all right, dude, you're gonna have to earn this one. I'm gonna send you some tools. I sent a guy like a grinder and some carbide bits to a fucking Amazon locker, and because he had bought the bushings off of us, the Siberian bushings, which were just a retail thing, and like they were really good for me. They were kind of terrible for some other people, and a lot of people had installation issues because they're not like just cranking these things out like I was. So a guy was having a hell of a time with it, and I was just like, "Look, dude, you're gonna have to grind that piece off. You're gonna have to cut the little shell out. Like it's hard, okay? Like you got rust in your state. It's a thing." And he's like, "I need this to get to work on Monday." And I was like, "Oh, dude, like really?" And he's like really having a hard time. So I'm like, all right, cool. I'm going to buy you some tools. I'm going to overnight them to your house and like, I'm going to talk you through this. And so we got it done. I mean, everything was cool, but it was stressful.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just having this conversation with somebody recently about like the extent that some people will go to in business like that. And like, it's like a noble thing, right? Like to be able to provide that guy to grind or a grinder, right? Or like just whatever he needs, but also not necessarily your responsibility. So that balance like is really difficult to find, especially if you're somebody who feels personally responsible for it. And so, yeah, to like probably identifying that and figuring out where you land at some point is a really good thing. But it's really easy to get carried away if you're the kind of person that's like, oh my God, I sold this person this thing. Like I have to help them. And maybe you do, maybe you don't. Like that's kind of a different conversation, but like the stress that you put on yourself to do those things can be very, very big.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've ruined a lot of people's cars over the internet, I think. So there's always a, hey, I saw you did this swap. Like, is it easy? And I'm like, yeah, it was easy. Like, do these 3 things, it'll work. And then they get into it and they're like, well, my car lit on fire. That happened.
I'll overnight you a fire extinguisher. It's no big deal.
Dude, a guy was trying to bypass his EGR, and I was like, I don't know, man. Here's a link to a guy that did it on a 3000 GT. Maybe get on that forum and figure it out. Like, I don't have one on my car, so like, it can't be that hard. And so he goes on this forum and he's like asking me a bunch of questions and he's asking them a bunch of questions. And he's like, yeah, I think this is going to work. And I was like, cool, dude. Like you figured it out. And so then, the next day he's like, well, I fried my ECU and scorched some wiring. And I was like, oh, dude, really? Like, I feel really bad. I think I sent him an ECU, actually.
Because you had one?
And this is just a dude, like...
just random guy.
Random guy. And I'm that guy on the forum, too. So, like, Colin, like, I hope I helped you in a good way and didn't help you in a bad way.
Oh, I mean, personally, I think you totally helped me. So it was between you and the now Dimitri Stellarbuilt, who was Eurosonic on Expedition Portal. You guys were the 2 dudes that were like doing big stuff with your blister fenders, and that's what it sold me on it. Like just going through your guys' threads and like actually reading and like seeing what it was that you were talking about doing and what you did and what you found out. And because I'm the type that like over researches things when I like get on to like, okay, I think this is my next rig, I will like research it to death.
Yeah.
And so like, that's kind of what I did was in that forum, and then like finding out that you were on other forums. And so I'd like go into those, and it was just like, yeah, it was this whole rigmarole of everything. But I didn't have bad experiences from it. I loved my Montero. My Montero is still in town. Somebody else is driving it now. And I sold it with, I think it was 270 something thousand miles on it. And he's still driving it. So it's probably, 370 by now. And
Nice.
it's still just getting about, doing everything that he wants it to do. So it's like, I can't talk bad about Monteros ever. Like they're one of the first rigs that I suggest to people that are like, oh, I'm looking for a budget wheeler or whatever. And it's like, yeah, right there.
Yeah. We did the episode where we did top 5 under 5,000 or whatever. And it was on everybody's list, even like people that were list. Like, whatever, Montero's Montero, but like it's on the list. XJ and Montero are the value for sure that's out there.
Yeah. So I had one more, like, kind of, I don't know if it's a deep question, but it's.
I asked him if he was a dirtbag, so you could probably.
Okay, yeah. So you, I don't know if it's a yearly thing or not, but you kind of help put on the Sierra Challenge, as you refer to it. So if you could give us a little breakdown of that, maybe even, I don't know that it's happened yet this year, so you can give us a date or whatever. Just give us the rundown.
We usually do it every other year.
Okay.
And then every now and then we're so jazzed up, we do it 2 years in a row, just randomly. We got a group text going. I try to invite new people, get new people out to do it. We usually set 2 weeks. We do a spread of trails, and we do like 1 or 2 like top tier trails. Like we'll do the Northern Sierras or the Southern Sierras, and that kind of, we've done them both in 1 year before. We did the Rubicon and Doozy Ursham and trails in between, which was insane. Wow. But normally we just stick to north or south and just overshoot for trails where, okay, we're going to do 7 trails. Really, we're going to do 4, 5, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just a spread, and we'll usually do some easier ones and lead into some harder ones, or we'll do like a hard one and then taper off and do some easy stuff. And then we've done some years where it's like everything's going to be insane. And we did Fortis 1 year, and Fortis is just not a joke.
Yeah.
No.
And it was almost a disaster. I can tell you about that, but I got to get a phone charger. This is like depleting my battery. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the 3rd gen Montero.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I
know it exists.
Yeah, I've never owned one, but I like I said, my research clips that I fall off of, I have done plenty of delving into those as well.
So we brought 2 of them on the Rubicon 1 year, and one guy had never 4-wheeled.
Oh my God.
Like ever. And he rode in on the trail, and he's like, wow, that trail was a pretty good warm-up. Is the rest of it like this? We're like, the dirt road getting to the trailhead? Like,
no.
Are you sure you want to do this? And he's like, oh yeah, like I built my truck to match the other guy's truck who's coming, so like I'm gonna do it. And we're like, he had all the gear, he had all the equipment, and he's just like, I'll learn as I go. I'm like, okay, cool, good attitude.
Good one to learn.
And it's beautiful. He's got this just mint black 06 Montero, low mileage. He's
the one I'm thinking of. He took the taillights out, right?
Yeah, and so we get on the trail, and it's just insane for him. And he's learning. We're going. He had 32-inch passenger car tires on it.
Oh my God!
They were recommended on Expedition Portal as good wheeling tires.
All right.
He popped 2 of them, but luckily he brought 2 spares. And dude, he did great though. Like he wheeled all of the Rubicon, and he broke one CV, but he brought spares because we said, hey, dude, if you're going to do this, you're bringing spares. And so, like, he had such a good time. He took barely any damage. His little Nerf bars and his little Weston rear bumper got destroyed, but the truck was in good shape. Like, nothing had gotten irreversibly broken.
That's good.
And so we get to the end, and we're like, all right, dude, now it's time to ratchet it up a notch. We're going to go do Fortis. And you don't have to come if you don't want to. But, like, this dude has just an unbreakable spirit. He's, like, been the best person I've ever met out of, like, groups to just show up, or people just to show up and go four-wheeling. And he's like, nah, man, I'm committed. Like, I did that. I'm ready for more. And the other Gen 3 guys, like, don't do it. These guys are nuts. And, like, I know him too. He's a good friend of mine, and he's right. He shouldn't have done it. But, you know, so that guy leaves. He's actually one of the Pacific Northwest guys, Get Out Club or something. His name's Pete. I don't know if you guys know him or not. He's from Oregon.
I think I know. Is that he had the white third gen?
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's like the most well done one ever. Yeah. So anyway, he leaves. He's like, you guys are on your own. And he's such a good driver. Like, he is, like, he could have done it. Nothing against him for leaving, but he knew, you know? And so our other guy comes with, we get onto Fortis. I didn't even know what to expect on that trail. And it's just relentless waterfall climbs. And so we're going, and we break another axle. Okay, cool. Let's fix it. And so we fix an axle, break another one. We use up all of his spares. He breaks a rear, which is like, that's a big deal on a Gen 3. It's 125 millimeter CV. So his locker quits working. We get to, I think it was Winch Hill 4, whatever the last one is. We get up it, and there's one more winch hill to drive, and his truck is just beat to hell. Like, he's got one wheel drive at this point.
Oh my God.
So basically a rear axle's broken, his locker's on, and so he's powered by one rear wheel. And we're kind of like driving on the trail, pull him a little bit, drive on the trail, and we're like, all right, dude, we get to this next one, it's smooth sailing out of here. And somehow he picks up a boulder with his rear drive shaft, and on the Gen 3, it's carbon fiber.
Whoa.
So it just explodes. God. And now it has no wheel drive. And we're looking around, and, like, we don't know what we're going to do. Like, we're not in a good spot. We have to, the closest thing is, like, should we go back down the winch hill and then go across Fortis Creek through the committee exit? That's the bailout. Like, maybe that's the way we should go. We didn't know at the time that was actually a really, really hard way to go.
Oh, no.
And so we're trying to fix his truck. And I was like, you know what? I saw a pipe, like, out in the bushes back there. I can turn that into a drive shaft because we had an onboard welder. I can do this. And I break it out, and I'm like, dude, it's the right size. Like, this can't be more perfect. And I wanted to do it. I was like, this will be the thing that's like, oh, now it's legendary. We made a drive shaft on a trail out of a pipe from, you know, who knows when, mining shit from the early 1900s, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, dude's like, yeah, it'll work. And I was like, oh, you bet it'll work. Like, I have all the tools. I have all the materials. We're doing this. And then I got vetoed. Everybody's like, no, dude, it's getting dark. We can't do that. Like, this is one of your crazy adventures we can't do. We can't afford to do this right now, Adam. So throw the pipe back in the bush. We go down. We tow this thing across the river, and we get to the other side. The truck tow. We're towing them with two trucks because it's just that fucking dead.
Yeah.
So we have this daisy chain of trucks. The front truck breaks an axle. It's just a nightmare. It takes us, I don't know, maybe 6-7 hours to get from where we were to off the trail, and it was just a brutal nightmare. And we stop at this lake, and we finally broken the guy. He's like, oh my God, my wife is going to kill me. I don't know how I'm going to get my truck home. And I'm like, oh, dude, we can fix this. We're going to make this better. Like, we got you. So we get a ham radio. We're calling around. We end up finding a junkyard in Reno that's got one. And so two of the guys leave the group. We're just hanging out at the lake, chilling. They get new drive shaft, new CV axles. We get him back middle of the night, put his whole truck back together. Everything's great. And, now he comes wheeling with us every single time. And he's gotten so good at driving. He's legit, dude. It's been a great progression. Every year he gets a little bit better and his truck gets a little more fine-tuned and dialed in. It's not nice anymore, but it's good.
I bet.
Yeah. So all that to say, if you have a Montero, go on the Sierra Challenge.
Yes. It's worth it. Even if it ruins your car. I've ruined mine a lot of times. It's worth it.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Are you doing it this year, or is this year a year off?
This is a year off. We're going to go to Moab in October. And then I think next year we wanted to do Colorado. And then the following year, we wanted to go back and do Fortis again, but only with like the most hardcore rigs, because I think Fortis has gotten even harder.
Mm-hmm.
But I also heard it's closed, so that could change.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that.
My brother was talking about going after our trip.
Uh-huh.
So instead of going to Tahoe with us, that's what they're planning on doing. So we'll find out.
They close and open trails all the time there because of like weather and stuff. So it could be that.
Yeah. Yeah. So the same time that I was in the area and I did backwards Rubicon, I went to Fortis and did like up until the first like river or creek crossing. And I was like, nope, not by myself. This is terrible. The only reason I made it that far was because I couldn't turn around. I was like, well, I can get through this. It's not that bad. And then when I got to the water, I was like, no, nope, turning around.